So, hi, Jim. Thank you so much for joining us on the Next in Line podcast. We're very excited to have you on as our next guest. And before we talk about all things marketing today and a little bit about your journey, I want you to introduce yourself a bit to the audience, especially how you went from early in your career to becoming the former VP of Global Creative at Disney Yellow Shoes. So, walk us through that.
Absolutely. So happy to be here. And my story begins in San Diego, California. I'm really the product of both of my parents. My dad, believe it or not, was a concrete contractor and a writer. My mom was a talent and casting agent. So from my parents, my dad specifically, I learned the power of words, the power of story, and hard work because he was a concrete contractor. That's a whole other podcast. My mom was a casting director and talent agent in San Diego. Tina Rial, she started a lot of careers there. And with her, I learned how to work on production. I learned how film sets work. My mom was one of the casting directors on Top Gun. So when I was in college, I got to go beyond that, the original one. So I knew I wanted to tell stories. I knew I had a marketing bent. And so what I did is I started out, I went to University of San Diego, majored in English, minored in business, but I discovered advertising and I started there working at agencies and worked my way up. And I was always intrigued by the creative side. That is my soul. My family has got a lot of creative people. There's Juilliard trained dancers and musicians. My first cousin is Brandon Boy, the lead singer of Incubus. We're filled with all these creative people. So I always wanted to be on the creative side, went up through the ad agency ranks, finally landed a job at TBWA Chiat in Venice, California, really opened my eyes to the power of storytelling, the power of concepts. I got to work under the famous Lee Clow and got to see that. So worked my way up and on bigger brands, bigger stories. And then about 15 years ago, the opportunity came to join Disney. And that was in California. And that was in-house and talk about the biggest storytelling brand, Disney. That was fascinating. So worked my way up, eventually got asked to go to China to lead creative for Shanghai Disney Resort. We had just opened. So there's really no pressure about that. It was kind of a high pressure thing, but I loved it. I loved telling stories there and eventually rose to be VP of Global Creative for Yellow Shoes, which is the marketing creative arm of Disney parks and experiences. I had over 100 or so creatives that I worked with and had the good fortune to lead and worked on amazing things and saw the power of storytelling firsthand. And since then, little voice, I had a great run there. Great time. Little voice in my head saying, you know what? It's probably time for you to take all the storytelling, all the things you've learned with Pixar, Marvel, Lucasfilm, the studios, and take that forward to brands and other teams around the globe. So that's what I'm doing now. I've gone from leading a team of 100 plus to a team of one, which is me. But I'm being very deliberate about people I partner with, brands, and I'm bringing my storytelling forward to brands and people everywhere.
I mean, I'm in awe. What an incredible journey. And even the way you describe your journey in this storytelling approach, I love it. And I know our audience is going to love it. And being that we're on the topic about this, I know you said you've spent a lot of years bringing storytelling to life at a global scale, especially, for example, at Disney. So what does global storytelling actually mean in practice?
Yeah. So it's a very good question. And it's one thing, I always had the good fortune to work at the Walt Disney Company, the biggest, most powerful storytelling entity in the world, but it's multiple entities. It's Lucasfilm, it's Marvel, it's Pixar. There are so many things. It's the studios, it's Imagineering. So I can give you a story in practice that happened to me. When I was in Shanghai, I just started and it was great. We're learning, helping the team grow and reaching the people of China. But some days it may have been a little imposter syndrome. I would be like, what am I, a guy of a Mexican-American descent from San Diego, California, doing in Shanghai, China?
Yeah.
But one day I got my answer loud and clear. I got in the office early and I'm like, okay, I'm going to get ahead of it. When I was sitting there working, I heard outside my office, the office was empty, Recuérdame, me, remember me, from the movie Coco. This was the full mariachi version.
Yeah.
Right? I came out, I'm walking around going, okay, what are the music of my ancestors doing here? I went out, I found this young woman and she was into it. She was in her own world. So I walked over and I said, hola, ni hao, hi.
Yeah.
What's up? And she said, oh, this is Coco. It's very Chinese. It's stories, it's ancestors, it's history. It's very Chinese. And I said,
Hmm.
it's of Mexican descent. It's very Chinese. Ancestors, history, culture. And right then I got my answer. It was like a mariachi trumpet blast, which
Yeah.
said stories that resonate with people are beyond borders. It worked because it worked. It connected. And then the other thing that hit me is like, you know what, buddy? You are in the right place. This is exactly where you need to be. So what I can say is stories connect with human truths. They connect with emotions. They connect with people at the heart. And if we can leverage those and tie that into experiences, you can win.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's an incredible perspective as well, because I feel like even with that, people are receptive to different stories in different ways. Like you mentioned, you would never think that that would resonate with her in that way because of the cultural differences. But when you really look deeper, it actually, there's a lot of similarities, right? So I just love how the human mind, looks at things in a different light, and you can learn so much from so many people that way.
One of the things I preach to my teams and anybody that'll listen is that we are drawn by human emotions. We are no different. These brains are no different than our ancestors 57,000 years ago. We're driven by love, lust, anger, belonging. It's classic things. If you can connect with those and connect with those stories that resonate, and when you tie them into real experiences, things you can walk and touch, not just marketing, then that's where you resonate with people. And that's something I know have been obsessive about at Disney, and I am obsessive about going forward.
Absolutely. And, now that we're on the topic of this, I know that, when you were working in China and your time there, what's something that you learned on the ground there that completely changed how you think about the storytelling approach and this human connection as well, being that it's a totally different place, right?
Yeah. I think, one of the biggest things is people are people, right? There are cultural nuances and differences, things that are unique to each culture. And so I'm still learning. It was like a masterclass. It was like graduate school. I'm very close to both teams in Shanghai and Hong Kong. One of the things I've learned is do not presuppose with my Western way of thinking that we know all the answers. Be open and be very, very cognizant. I'll give you an example. Walking around Shanghai every day, you'd see it was all these different things. And what was very apparent a lot of times is here in the US, we have pickup trucks, right? They're ubiquitous. We see them everywhere. There, I didn't see hardly any pickup trucks, but I would see a guy on a scooter with the flatbed with all of his stuff on the back of it. And his wife may be sitting on the top, and he's cruising around, moving things, doing whatever, doing his thing. That worked, right? So the thing I impart with everybody, don't cling to what you think is right. Be open, try things, see things. I'm a big believer in taking smart risks and just open your eyes, right? There's not just one way to do things.
Absolutely. And that honestly, really, that piece of advice right there also ties into advice for the next generation of marketing leaders, people in general, starting out their career as well. It's like being open to learning, not just from a cultural nuance, standpoint, but just in general, right? Because I feel like that's the best way that you can gain that experience and work up to your goals and where you want to be.
Absolutely. One of the things I work to impart to teams, anybody I've worked with, people I still mentor, I had the good fortune of mentoring 11 people at a time around the globe and at all different levels. I especially like to mentor and advise people earlier in their careers. And I learn as much as them from them, I hope, as they learn from me. It's very much a two-way street. But what I really try to impart to them is it's very simple how to stand out. It's very simple how to make a difference. And it's very simple how to progress your career. I use this term I call grandma rules. And
Yeah.
grandma rules apply. It's very simple. Listen to your grandma. What did my grandma say? Work hard, show up early, ask for more, volunteer. I'll do that. I'll try that. Nobody expects you to be an expert in the beginning. That's the second part of it. If you don't know something, it's okay. Hey, hi, help me understand, right? That energy and that movement forward will prepare people for the future. And I'll give you another insider tip. A lot of times as a, executive creative lead or creative director, we would think about before Disney and at Disney, who we want working on this thing, whatever the assignment was. And oftentimes we'd sit and be another leader and go, what about so-and-so? What about, oh yeah, they're always hungry. They always show up. We need them, right? There would be some people that we wouldn't remember because we didn't know them. So I'm not saying you have to be loud and always beating the drum, but make your presence known. Ask, volunteer, put yourself out there, be the people, be the team that leaders go, we need to get them.
Exactly. So I feel like a lot of people in my age and like we're starting our careers, right? They get shy or they're like, oh no, I don't want to sound dumb. I think that's a stupid question. And I'm always like, there's no such thing as stupid questions. There's no such thing as feeling that way because the more you're actually a little bit, I guess some people will say it's vulnerable in a state like that or putting yourself out there in a way like, hey, I don't know something. I want to learn. I feel like you'll actually stand out a lot more than the ones that are like, okay, I know everything or hey, I'm just going to just do my day to day and not go outside the box. Right. So I think that
Yeah.
is advice. And I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, absolutely. And you'd be surprised. I'm not surprised how many senior leaders and other leaders will help the people that try and ask because we were all there. We're all just people, right? We recently at Disney had a big assignment for Disney Cruise Line. It's aired at the Oscars. It was a lot of people. It's fantastic. Check out Disney Cruise Line Midnight Magic. Tours if you haven't seen it. But we opened it up to a lot of different teams, external teams, agency teams, and our own crew. And when we got down to the finals, there were 3 or 4 final ideas in the mix that we were batting about. One of them came from a trifecta of our youngest team, our youngest creatives. It was 3 enterprising young women. We helped them. We worked with them to get there. In the end, that idea didn't make it a bad idea. It was fantastic. So we were rallying around all the people working on it, but I would expect, especially warmed my heart that this junior team of 3 was in the mix in the finals.
Yeah, you never know. One idea can spark something much greater and it could make such an impact on the organization from a creative standpoint. I bet you they're looking back at that and like, wow, I was a part of that, right? They feel good. That's nice to know because it's validation too that you're meant to be in the rooms that you're meant to be in.
And we made sure that everybody else at Yellow Shoes in the agency, especially the creative side, notice, look, watch, right? And I love that. It's just being in the game, putting yourself out there and taking smart risks, right?
Yeah. I feel like when you make those smart risks is when you start seeing a lot of, stuff come to light for sure.
Absolutely.
So I do want to start shifting. Now that we're a little bit into the leadership segment here, I wanted to talk about what was one of the hardest career transitions for you, especially from now going from managing big global teams to now you're saying you're an individual contributor. Why do you think this jump is challenging for so many professionals?
Yeah, I'll rephrase it a little bit. I think one of the biggest jumps for anybody from being an individual contributor, from being part of a team to moving into that first phase of leadership is moving beyond, right? When you're an individual contributor earlier in your career or wherever you are, you're a wholly owned subsidiary of one. You're responsible for yourself, maybe somebody else you're working on a project, you work together. When you make that first leap into leadership, that is a crucial step. And a lot of times, at least in the ad agency world I come from, there is really no training for that. Disney, we're a little different. We would have courses and things people would take. But those skills transitioning, the things that made you a great individual contributor, oftentimes have nothing to do with the leadership part of it. It's moving from we, right, to we beyond me, right? And when we're hiring people, moving them up, I listen in interviews. If I'm hearing a lot of me, I really push to see, do they have that share? Can they put their wishes aside and elevate the team? So that is the biggest jump, I think, for everybody moving into a leadership role. Whether you're leading 3 people or eventually, 100 plus or more, you need to be able to do that, right? And it isn't a born thing. It can be practiced. It can be learned. It can be taught. And so I tell leaders as well, and I always actively coach that. Invest in your people, invest in the time. There's a lot of people who would sit on my couch at Disney and we talk about it and what that means. So that is the biggest opportunity, I'd say, as somebody moves. And a lot of times I'll talk to people that are, they're different phases and maybe they're complaining about a project or whatever. And I always try to spin it back and saying, okay, let's look at this. We can look at it through the today lens, but let's look at it through tomorrow, because one day, if you're not a leader now, you will be. Let's take that approach. Ownership, taking on the responsibility, looking out for your people. So I'm always coaching to help people get there.
Absolutely. And I know that when we talked about this in our earlier sessions, right, we were talking about how we often see, these high performers struggle when they step into the leadership. So, what are some of the biggest mindset shifts, someone needs to actually make before becoming a strong leader?
Yeah. One of the things I'd say is I'm an idea first leader. I can say that by creative standards. I am not an ego driven creative leader. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm going to roll over and not sell something and believe in the ideas we have. But if you're purely drawn by yourself and your cult of one, that is a tough thing to bridge, right? To be an effective leader. And I'd also say earlier in your career, watch, learn, listen. I learned as much from what I call kind of sucky leaders as I did from great leaders, because you'll learn, you're always taking notes. Oh, notice that, do that.
Yeah.
Ah, okay. And other times like, don't do that. That's not good, right? And I'm not going to name names. That's not good. But always you're walking case studies to watch, learn, listen. And then how does it feel, right? We've all been in meetings and we've all been in organizations where maybe there's an idea that we know isn't going to work, or there's a process that's broken. And so take notes. And sometimes as you get more senior, you're looked at to help solve those issues, but take notes because you're learning, right? And I'd say wherever somebody is today, whether they're earlier in their career, they're a senior leader, but I'll talk to the folks that are earlier in their career. Take a leadership mindset. It's one thing to say, that sucks. I don't like them. It's one thing to take that, and sure, you got to vent, you got to get it out. But it's another thing to step back and go, wait a minute. What can I do? What can I offer for the betterment of the work, the betterment of the team, in a case of marketing or creative, for the betterment of our businesses that we're supporting? How do I put that first? And what can I do every single day to further that, to move that ahead?
Exactly. I think that's like one of the most important pieces that maybe people don't really see first off right away until they're in the thick of, like you said, being that walking case study, being observant in their experiences. And I mean, that is excellent advice, especially for the next generation who, let's say, they're early on their careers and they don't know yet, right? They don't have that experience, and they're able to hear from people like you today sharing that advice. So I appreciate it.
Well, one other thing to add, mentorship is super important, I believe. We get into sponsorship and advocacy, but mentorship is something you can enter formal mentor programs. They exist. And hello, I'm your mentor, mentee kind of thing.
Yeah.
The other thing I recommend is notice leaders that you admire, right? In your industry, in your company, wherever you are, and reach out. You can do that, and people will respond. By and large, it can be an email, it could be a text, whatever's appropriate. Say, hey, hi, you may have seen me or know me, or I'd love to get 15 minutes with you to hear about, learn about, talk about. And the human truth, people love to talk about themselves. So what I'm getting at is they also love people that are hungry. So you can kind of make your own mentor mentee situation just by asking. So it's very empowering to do that. And I highly recommend that.
Absolutely. And now, when we're talking a little bit more about the next generation entering the workforce with this excellent advice that you just gave, what's something that you wish more people focused on earlier that would set them up for long-term success?
Yeah, I think it's important to look at the bigger picture. And I can speak from an advertising, marketing, creative side of the house first. When you're starting out, you're building a portfolio, you're creating work that says, hire me if you're coming out of school. So you need to take smart risks. And I'll tie into that. I think taking smart risks is super, super important. It's easy to stay in a comfort zone. It's easy to stay in your lane. I get it. But we have to try things and we have to fail. That's the only way we learn. We have to not be afraid of failure, right? And so does that mean I'm going to blow it today? No. What it means is if you're putting yourself out there, if you're trying things, if you're bringing a curious spirit and an open spirit, failure is just data points. That's all it is. You learn along the way. I always give this example. For a baby, a child, when they learn to walk, by and large, they teach themselves. By and large, nobody's teaching them. So you'll notice that babies crawl. Well, eventually they crawl, kind of stand up, wobble, fall. Crawl, kind of stand up, hold to something, fall. Fall, get up, walk, fall, get up, walk, fall, walk, run, fall, run. Those falls are data points. They're calibrating. They're learning. Oh, okay, do that. and pretty soon they're running. So that analogy, I think, is very important. You've got to try things. Do not be afraid of failure. Learn how to pick yourself up, right? If everything worked great, if everything worked perfectly, how interesting would be that? That wouldn't be a life, right? So I learned the most from instances where I've blown it. All right. It hasn't worked out well, right? And you gotta try.
Absolutely, Lynn. And I love that analogy. A lot of people would say, oh, I want to have this perfect path. The career path is just smooth sailing. And I feel like if you're like that, that's not honestly the reality of things when it comes to your job and your career. I think that if you stay stagnant, you're in the comfort zone, right? You want to be able to always get outside of that zone because that's when you're going to see the most growth. And it might look like a zigzag. It might look like up and down and crashing, but hey, I mean, I take it as I learned from every little thing, like you said, data points throughout my own journey that has been shaping me into the person I am today. And I think that that's an excellent approach for those that are entering.
Yeah. To add to that, one thing I learned when I was at TBWA Chiat, I had the good fortune of working 12 feet away from an advertiser and creative legend, a guy named Lee Clow. And I learned a lot from watching that guy and observing. And we would ask him, and I think this applies beyond advertising creative. We'd say, Lee, what do we do when all the work dies? And he'd look at the answer was so elegant. And I'm going to go into his voice. You can always come up with more stuff, right? Come up with more stuff. And don't show them bad stuff. Make sure you only show them great stuff. Can you do that? Yeah. Do that. And so, and it creates an opportunity because once the work all dies, once there's seeming failure, therein lies the opportunity because some idea needs to move forward. Somebody's going to win. Why not you?
Exactly. And that you couldn't have said it any better. That is amazing. And now as we wrap up the podcast, I want to talk a little bit about the core of this podcast, the ideas, paying it forward to the next generation. So what does that personally mean to you? And how do you try to pass that mindset through your leadership and mentorship that you've also mentioned before?
Yeah, one of the things it's crucial to me, as I mentioned, mentorship, sponsorship, really paying it forward. So it is a sacred mission for me to spend time with people that I've worked with. I had interns 25 years ago. I've been doing this a while. I still talk to them.
Yeah.
I still meet with them. Now, they're not interns anymore. They're chief creative officers. And so it's always having this ongoing relationship. And I tell anybody that takes me up on this, that has been an intern or on my team, guess what? Our working relationship can be for life. I'm not kidding. Here's my text. Here's my email. I'm happy to talk to you. And now I can't do it every day, but let's get this going because we can learn from each other. And I learn as much from people that I mentor, mentee, that kind of deal. So it is crucial for me to keep myself honest, keep myself fresh, but I have a vested interest in this crew, right? And people that I meet, right? People that I meet. And some people I just met, somebody I felt like I've known him for 25 years. We just met. So that to me is paying it forward.
Absolutely. And I love that. I couldn't have thought of a better way to end off this podcast. And I thank you so much for your time today and all the wisdom that you shared. It's been great. And yeah, thank you so much.
It's my pleasure and my honor. Thank you.